Welcome back to the DotLife podcast, Dorchester's podcast source of local news, content, and analysis. We're joined, as usual, by Bill Forry from the Dorchester Reporter. And Bill, you're not wearing Celtics green today. What's going on?
Nope. I'm putting it in the rear view, Erin, like a lot of us. We're, white-knuckling this thing this week. It was a tough loss.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I got a closet full of other team colors. I happen to be wearing Boston College maroon and gold today.
Of course.
Reigning national champion women's lacrosse team. I'm also a part owner of Boston College, thanks to my two sons, who will soon both be going there. So apparently, they are now a part owner of the Reporter. Probably is more like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Boston College has my attention this weekend.
So we're done with the Celtics for this year?
We're done with the Celtics in terms of like that. Yeah. And until further notice, there's other fish to fry.
I got to tell you, I've been, I don't know if the word is impressed or just struck by how quickly Bostonians will move on from a team as soon as they stink. Like Buffalo, we will hang on for literally decades with no playoffs, and you guys are like, eh.
Yeah, it's funny that you're saying all those things out loud and on like a recorded podcast, because I think it does say something about Buffalo, for one thing. We do have like a wealth of opportunity and options here in Boston, which is
true.
One of the reasons it's now your home, I think. And but yeah, for starters, the Red Sox will now start to creep more into my conversations.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I went to the game this weekend. As you know, my family was here.
Yeah, how you doing with that?
Recovering.
Yeah.
I'm in full-on recovery mode. Yeah.
I can tell.
It was great, but it's a lot.
It was great. Yeah. Well, you survived it, and I'm sure they're watching now, so she had a great time. We were just talking
Excellent
about you.
time. Yep.
Yeah, she had a blast.
Astute listeners may notice, viewers may notice that the pod was a little delayed on getting up in video format this week, so my apologies to all of our fans. We will not have that happen again, but it was for a good reason.
There are trying times, and we're also busy. You're very busy helping not only launch a podcast, but helping to organize things like Dorchfest. I know
like 10 days.
You were one of the creators of Dorchfest, and it must be very cool seeing it take off this year even more. Like, there's all these new volunteers. Greater Ashmont Main Streets is kind of the key agency now running it. But I was just driving, by on the expressway and seeing this huge billboard for Dorchfest on the Carpenters Union, and like, man, it's all over the neighborhood.
We've infiltrated. Yeah, it's all over the place.
Yeah, I think
banners and signs.
Be prepared, Ashmont Adams. I think, on a good weather day, there's going to be quite a turnout this year.
Speaking of good weather days, man, what's going on this week? Did we have our spring?
I'm still wearing my raincoat because it's going to monsoon soon, from what I've heard. So, we're getting it all out of our system, like we said last week. So Dorchester Day weekend, Dorchfest weekend is just going to be immaculate.
I mean, it's a little early to say definitively, but last time I checked AccuWeather, 74 and sunny on Saturday the 31st.
All right,
so
let's go.
Let's keep that going.
Yes.
While you're here, though, we've got to talk about some news. And you guys, the Dorchester Reporter, is breaking some pretty major news about Section 8 housing this week.
Yeah, this is unfortunately... this is a bad news story if this comes to pass over the coming months here, not just for Boston, by the way. This is a national story.
This is part of Trump's big, beautiful bill
cuts?
Okay.
This is the federal budget as proposed, would have a 40% across-the-board cut to all kinds of housing programs, public housing and voucher programs like Section 8. So if people aren't familiar with Section 8, it's the city's rental housing assistance program, which gives people who are eligible, low income, oftentimes formerly homeless families, a voucher that allows them to rent an apartment in the city or nearby.
Right.
And currently in Boston, there are 18,000 voucher holders and a wait list of people behind them.
Just in the city of Boston?
Just in Boston, just for the Section 8 program.
Oh, my gosh.
The state has its own program, which is also, it's statewide, obviously, and is also incredibly important and will likely be impacted by federal cuts as well.
Yeah.
But our story this week is really about the BHA program.
Okay.
Boston Housing Authority supervises these vouchers. There's 18,000 families and properties that currently have them. Mm-hmm. And they put out a letter to property owners last week, warning them really that, hey, be prepared for cuts that are likely to come. Even if it's not 40%, which is the current proposal, even if it's 20%, even if it's 10%, there's going to be major impacts to thousands of people in the city of Boston, both tenants and property owners who would have to then account for how are they going to adjust.
And this is 8,000 families-ish in the Dorchester, Mattapan region, and up to 11,000 kids. Is that what it was? That's insane.
11,000 children who are part of, family households that are currently Section 8 holders in the city. Now, to take a step back, every year there's some kind of funding crisis around Section 8, mainly because of inflation, and the level funding each year is having trouble keeping up with the cost of increased housing in the city of Boston in particular, and places like Cambridge and Somerville that also have a lot of Section 8 housing.
Yeah.
So that's not unusual. And I spoke to Kenzie Bach, who's the commissioner of the BHA, about this week. And every year HUD, which is the federal agency that funds this housing, this source of funding, frequently will step in October, November of any calendar year and give extra gap funding to close that gap and to help, not interrupt any checks going to landlords. So to keep tenants safe. Mm-hmm. So that's also on the table this year, that they're likely going to run out of funding for this year's Section 8 program. And because of this new administration, which is clearly hostile to affordable housing programs, hostile to a lot of things that people in Boston and greater Boston, Massachusetts have come to some extent take for granted that these programs would be at least level funded. There's no assurances at all that even the level funding for this year is going to be okay. But the real problem kicks in at the beginning of the next fiscal year for the federal budget, which is October. And that's when, if the current Trump proposal gets through Congress with 40% cut, that's when you would see, according to Kenzie Bach, as many as 8,000 families in Boston as a whole lose their vouchers.
What are we talking about in terms of dollars? Do you know?
I don't know the exact dollar figure for the whole system. It's in the tens of millions of dollars annually, just for the Section 8 program. But we have 5,000 voucher holders just in Dorchester, in our 4 zip codes, plus Mattapan. So Dorchester, Mattapan, roughly 5,000 households that are dependent on this program. And by the way, the property owners are dependent on it too, right? So this is a symbiotic process. It's worked because it is. And it's largely, traditionally had bipartisan support. This is one of those things where, frankly, wealthy property owners benefit from this program too. They get steady sources of income. They bake those numbers into their financing to get mortgages and leverage those homes for other projects. This has the potential to be a real tsunami of crises for a lot of different people, not just folks who are people might be out there thinking, oh, I don't have Section 8, I'm all set. Well, think of the people in your network who own a 3-decker or a 6-family home in the neighborhood and rent to Section 8 folks.
And those are, according to your reporting, those are the majority of the Section 8 landlords. They're not these huge, they're the huge landlords that we think of are the ones renting the expensive luxury housing. They're not the people renting Section 8.
That's right. So there are 6,000 property owners who got this letter from the BHA last week, roughly, across the city saying, hey, heads up, you're either going to have to, not raise your rent in the coming year or maybe even reduce it. And by the way, there's even the threat that, you won't have those vouchers anymore. That's how draconian these cuts could be. So the property owners are key here, right? So some of those larger property owners are, fairly well-connected people. Yeah. They're wealthy and they tend to be donors to political parties on both sides of the spectrum. So I think part of the hope here politically is that those forces will kick in.
Make a stink.
Yeah, call up your congressman, your senator, who may be on the other side of this aisle, right? And traditionally, that's what's happened because it's a bipartisan issue. Usually, consensus is these programs work to prevent homelessness, but also to keep the housing market stable. This disruption would be massive for the city of Boston, we're already in crisis on the housing front in terms of affordability and displacement of people. We've seen it firsthand in Dorchester for sure for the last decade. Imagine adding this, fuel to the fire. It's a big deal. We've seen a lot, even just since yesterday afternoon when we posted our story online. We've seen, thousands of people sharing it on Facebook because so many people are part of this Section 8 system, either directly or indirectly.
Well, and as a community, even if you don't become affected directly by a lack of housing, think about the increased burden on all of the systems. So that includes lack of food accessibility, lack of school attendance. All of these things are going to be impacted by housing instability.
Yep.
It's going to have a massive after effect on this community.
I think so. It really is one of these, last week's Reporter, we had a headline that really dealt with, the Trump agenda hits close to home. And there were 3 different stories. This wasn't even one of them yet, right? We were talking about the cuts to SNAP that have definitely impacted things like the Daily Table, the ICE enforcement that's clearly stepping up, and the fear at large about nonprofit funding being slashed, the ripple effects of in the employment and job sector here. This particular one, though, is really scary because you're talking about, as Kenzie Bach said, sending thousands and thousands of families who were already on the bubble or homeless back into homelessness.
Right.
That's
who benefits?
Nuts.
Were you able to uncover who will benefit from this in your reporting? Because I feel like nobody, or
there must be some argument out there. I haven't heard anybody locally making the case, and I have to say, the housing advocates I did speak to for this story, they're hearing not only from the cities but from rural communities in Western Massachusetts. Section 8 is probably associated mostly with dense urban centers like ours. Yeah. But this is a national program.
Absolutely.
There are housing administrators all over the country sending these kind of letters out.
Yeah.
And it's deliberate. They want to activate that lobby of Republicans as well as Democrats and unenrolled people too, wealthy and poor, to say, wait a minute, this is nuts. So to answer your question directly, I haven't found a single person who says, oh yeah, this could be good. It's not going to be good.
No, it's infuriating, actually. It's really, really tough to deal with.
This is the kind of story we put on the front page for a reason. It's really important that people know about this now, not 6 months from now. And Kenzie Bach, the Wu administration, to their credit, is, I think, trying to be proactive here. And it's also, HUD, which is obviously a federal agency. It's now under the control of the Trump administration. They mandate that they put this letter out because they want to tell landlords now, don't come and complain about this in 6 months when this happens. Do something about it now.
Well, thank you for shining light on this, making it as clear as you can that this is happening. It needs attention. It needs a lot of attention.
That's part of what we do. And then the other part of what we do is trying to bring balance and good news. And we have plenty of happy, good stories every week. But this is definitely in the other category. So people should go to dotnews.com, read about it some more. And I'm sure you'll be seeing other news outlets jump on this as well.
And call your elected official, even if they're on the right side of this. The more calls, the more attention that you give them about this, the more they're inclined to do something. And I know a lot of our representatives are already fighting the good fight. But
multi-fronts.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about some good news.
Okay.
You got the 2025 Legacy Business Awards that were announced, I think, this morning. We're filming on Wednesday.
Correct. Today was the day that the news dropped from the mayor's office, and the mayor's office of small business is the one that really coordinates this program. It's in its 3rd year now. It's a great concept, and I'll put up front, and I do have a bit of bias on this, to be honest, because the Reporter was a recipient of this award last year.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
It's nice to be part of a class of businesses. We were at this event last year. And what's cool about it is, we're in Dorchester. Obviously, there were a couple of other Dorchester businesses honored as well. But you meet these small entrepreneurs and small businesses from across the city, and so many of them are kind of iconic in their own hoods. Like this year, one of the winners is Pizzeria Regina in the North End.
Oh yeah.
J.J. Foley's in the South End.
They've
Dry
got
dock.
one on King Street too, I think, right? Down in the
Yeah,
financial district.
there is
yeah.
a one, the same name. I'm not sure if they're the same owners, but
I'm not
J.J.
either.
Foley's is the one in the south end, like near like Herald
Berkeley
Street. Yeah,
Street,
Berkeley
yeah.
Street,
Yep.
exactly.
I used to work in an office right above there, so I got familiar with J.J. Foley's, actually.
Great place to
Is
get
it?
familiar. I've been in there too. Other places like the Corab Pub in West Roxbury.
Okay.
There was a place, Dry Dock Cafe in Southie, which is like on the sneak tip, one of the best restaurants in the city.
Is it on Dry Dock Ave? Like in that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
It's
so out of
right
the
on the
way.
pier. It's
Okay.
right like you can't get any closer to the fishing.
Okay.
Like right off the ship kind of
But
food.
you recommend?
Highly recommended.
Okay.
In fact, Dry Dock Cafe was recommended to me for the first time like 20 years ago by a guy who went there 3 times a week religiously. And I had run into him at a wedding, and I was really interested in this question. I said, Mr. Mayor, what's your favorite restaurant in Boston?
Yeah.
And Tom Menino said Dry Dock Cafe.
Oh, really?
you to this day, you go into Dry Dock and you're going to run into well-known like political figures, Bostonians, and it's a no-frills place, but it's one of the great seafood meals in the city.
All right. We'll check
it out.
Yeah.
But they're on this list.
Okay.
And here in Dorchester this year, we have Green Hills Bakery
Oh,
in Adams
yeah.
Village, which iconic Irish bakery.
Yeah.
We have Ballet, which is probably definitely the greatest banh mi sandwich in the region.
Pretty sure we're on episode 6 and you've already touted them twice.
Well, get ready; they're going to be mentioned a few times. I tried to go by there today and they were closed.
Oh, no.
But it's a great spot. On Dorchester Avenue by Savin Hill.
Okay.
And who else? Oh,
Ice
Ice
Cream
Cream
Smith.
Smith.
Yeah.
Ice Cream Smith, which has been around since I think 1974,
And that's in your neighborhood. So
and
you
it's
must
in
be a
Lower
regular.
Mills.
Yeah.
I'm a frequent flyer at Ice Cream Smith, along with most of my household. So 3 iconic Dorchester businesses this
Awesome.
year, and they're going to be honored at an event on June 3rd, which the Dorchester Reporter, we're proud to say we're the media sponsor of the event.
Okay.
And we're going to be there with, there's 30 winners each year, so 30 new winners that were announced today. And part of the program, which is cool, Erin, is in addition to a grant that the City of Boston gives each of these businesses as part of the award, you're also getting or entitled to get technical assistance, marketing support, consultants that the city helps connect you to do little things like, I don't know, help start a podcast or to, upgrade your computer equipment or improve your website.
How did you know all of those things are in my head right now?
This is definitely something that a lot of small businesses and startups need help with.
Yeah.
And even if they've been around for 43 years like us, or close to 50 years like the Ice Cream Smith, there's always little things that we need to
Yeah. And things change. So you need to, even if you have those things, you need to upgrade them or be at the cutting edge.
Exactly. So Mayor Wu and her administration, came up with this idea 3 years ago. This is, like, as I said, now the 3rd year. In addition to us, I've seen DJ's Polish Market, one of my favorite spots.
Yeah.
I was there today on Boston Street. Was 2 years ago, I think. Allen's Formal Wear on Blue Hill Avenue. There's also 2 Blue Hill Avenue winners this year. 3 actually. Merengue, which is right on the Dorchester-Roxbury line.
Okay.
My wife and I fight about this all the time. Yeah, Ollie's Roti on Blue Hill Avenue.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
Is it good?
It is. Ollie's Roti is it's a great spot for folks who are vegetarian.
Okay.
And they have amazing Mediterranean cuisine. And you can also the other one on Blue Hill Avenue is Boulevard Cleaners, which is a laundromat, laundry, dry cleaners. So, and there's tons of businesses like that. It's not just restaurants. It's the Bay State Banner. Our friends in publishing are one of the winners this year.
Talked to them this week, actually.
Yeah,
So,
the Banner is our friend and ally in many respects in doing the same kind of publishing work here in the city. So thrilled to see them win it as well.
Yeah.
Last year, El Mundo won, which is another publication. There's a Davis Funeral Home in Roxbury won this year. So it's
all types of businesses.
All types of businesses, but really they all have in common is longevity.
Yeah.
And kind of being institutions in their own way within their hood and across the city. Some of these places are really citywide in their draw.
And will you guys have the full list on your site?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's up now,
It is,
dotnews.com. You can go check that out. There's also a link to the program. One thing that's important to note, and the mayor's office stressed to us this week, is that this program is going to continue. Some funding in the city has been really impacted or
Yeah.
ran out, like the ARPA money that was used
Yeah.
to fund certain things. But I was told this week they're going to keep this program going. And they had 1,400 nominations this year
Wow.
for 30 slots. That's a lot.
That's
There's a lot
great.
of interest in this program, but you can learn more about it and you can see who's won now and in the past years at boston.gov or .news.com.
And American Provisions, it looks like the South Boston location.
Yes, the OG
Yeah.
AP one, and that's there's a location obviously in the Treadmark building in
Yep.
Ashmont, but the original one's on I think East Broadway.
Yeah,
in
yep.
Southeast. So a lot of fans. The other South Boston one is Dry Dock, and then every neighborhood is covered pretty much
Yeah.
in this year's list.
It's a good list, and if you're looking for a new place to check out, definitely go over to your website and take a look.
June 3rd, I'll put it out there now, is Linda Dorsina Forry is going to MC the event.
Oh, is she? Cool.
And then we are getting out of there because it's our anniversary. It's our wedding anniversary on
Oh.
June 3rd. So that was part of the deal, in making plans for that evening event. It's going to be at the Calderwood Pavilion in the South End,
Okay.
which is a great venue. And then Linda and I are going to dinner.
Do you know where you're going?
TBD.
Okay.
TBD.
Keep us posted.
It may be one of these people on
I
the
think
list.
it should.
Yeah,
It's
why
very
not?
poetic, yeah.
Exactly.
And congratulations on your anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you.
So while you and Linda are out driving around Boston for your anniversary looking for a place to eat, you might want to avoid Circuit Drive in Franklin Park, or at least if you do go down there, go very slowly.
Yeah. Well, so I think you've read the reporter this week and Seth Daniels' story about Franklin Park and the discussion around maybe someday shutting and like closing Circuit Drive off, exactly. That's the reaction of a lot of folks,
Yeah.
especially on the Dorchester Mattapan side. We're like, wait a minute.
Wait, are you saying shutting down roads is an unpopular idea?
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah. Because like some people want to get to Forest Hills or
It is like the only way to get through there without going all the way around the park.
Yeah, there's actually, and it's an ambulance route, the
Yeah.
hospital's over there, especially when you start closing Kearney Hospital. And we need to go to somewhere, so you're trying to shut down, like,
Shattuck?
yeah.
Is
So,
that
I mean,
how you say it? Shattuck?
Shattuck is over there,
Okay.
Faulkner's over that side
Yeah.
of town, like, and, but also, like, people want to get to Forest Hills or whatever.
Right.
There's a lot of reasons why people, and what State Rep Russell Holmes said in this meeting last week, which there's an article about it in the Reporter. It's in the context of a meeting about how city planners are moving towards making improvements to Circuit Drive, not
Okay.
closing it down.
Okay.
But there are folks who are like, let's just shut this thing down.
Yeah.
It's right in Franklin Park. It goes basically through a golf course and a zoo.
Yeah.
And now a stadium.
Right.
So maybe we shouldn't have traffic flying through there.
Yeah.
But
The speed limit's like 10 or something, or 15. Like, it's really slow, but nobody...
the speeds in there are obviously like 20 miles per hour higher.
Yeah.
But Russell Holmes shut this thing down, the state rep. He's like, it's not happening on
He
my
shut
watch.
down the shutting down.
Yeah,
Okay.
he shut down the shutting down, exactly. So I don't think anybody is going to, in the near future, see that road shut down.
Okay.
But city planners like, we'll take this up at a different date in the future.
Okay.
It's politically charged, and I don't think it's going to happen. But me and Linda will find a place to go that night, with or without Circuit Drive.
Who would have
trust me.
thought Franklin Park was going to be such a hotbed? Like, everything in Franklin Park. We got the Shattuck Hospital, which is always a point
Yeah.
of controversy. The White Stadium, which I saw in your paper, which we won't get into too much, but there's another lawsuit potentially. And now we've got Circuit Drive. The whole
Yeah.
thing is, and there's coyotes and dirt bikes.
There's a lot going on. But, Franklin Park for years was kind of ignored, I feel like,
I
in
agree.
the political discussion
Yeah.
citywide. So this is kind of a good problem,
Yeah.
in my view. People care about it, and there's a huge constituency for the park. So there should be a debate about the future.
I completely agree. I think Franklin, when I lived in JP, and now it touches on the Dorchester side, it was the one place I didn't really go that much. Like, I'd go to the Arbs and the pond, and even Forest Hill Cemetery, but
Yeah.
Franklin Park was always a little.
It's a huge
rough.
destination. Golfers, kids, families for the zoo, and obviously
Yeah.
soon the stadium. The stadium might get pushed a little further back. We're just hearing today the timeline for getting that stadium done might be closer to 27 than
No,
26.
really?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's some reporting on that today.
Is that because of the protests or because of just construction?
I think it's more related to construction right now,
Okay.
but lawsuits probably don't help.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the last thing we wanted to talk about was it is Memorial Day on Monday. So
Yep.
this is Memorial Day weekend, even though it feels like it's March.
I know the weather is not feeling Memorial Day-ish, but it is more Memorial Day on Monday. And I have a piece in the Reporter this week recalling that not too long ago we had one of the oldest and kind of most revered Memorial Day observances in the whole region, and definitely in the city of Boston at Cedar Grove Cemetery. And it's stopped in COVID, and it's too bad because
Yeah.
it really it has been a tradition in this part of the city for since 1867.
And this is also the parade.
Yeah, there used to be a parade as well that would of veterans who would
Yeah.
march to the cemetery. There'd always be a speaker. JFK was a speaker one year.
Oh,
Governors, top brass of the military. It was a big deal, and annually they would often be a ship that would come in, a U.S. Navy ship, and the sailors would march, and huge contingent. It's all kind of dwindled over the years, and now it's not happening at all. And kind of raising that again as an issue that I think it's a tradition that should be revived.
Bill.
One of the reasons, and DotLife is a great opportunity to convene it.
I have to ask you this.
Yeah.
Is this about your birthday?
My birthday is coming up.
You're really mad that they don't have a parade on your birthday anymore.
Well, Dot Day is close enough, so I do have a parade in the future. But
Okay.
yeah, I missed the Memorial Day parade. It did go right by my house as a kid, and I do miss that. But I also think, it's a shame to lose that connection. The Memorial Day observances started in the Civil War. Right after the Civil War, Dorchester lost 90-plus soldiers, men in that war, including Benjamin Stone, who there's a memorial to in the cemetery. And that tradition of kind of remembering that, it's especially poignant in our times now.
Yeah. I will say when I was, freshly out of college and living in Rochester, New York for the first couple of years, I went to the Memorial Day parade there, and it was one of the I will always remember, it was just very somber and very moving, and the pride that the veterans had in marching in that parade was evident, and I think we should have something
There's
like
also
that
a
here.
World War II memorial in the cemetery, and so that generation, not too long ago, and this was still with us in some respects. So, I've talked to a couple of veterans in the neighborhood and people who are involved at the cemetery about this. There's definitely, the beginnings of a discussion around reviving it. So we should have that conversation here on DotLife again before next Memorial Day. Make it happen.
I will commit to that.
Cool.
By the way, Cedar Grove Cemetery is such a great jewel. I love walking through there, and it's one of the few cemeteries in the city that still allows dogs on leash, and my dog loves going there, although he does bark at the trolley.
Yeah. And it's also what other cemetery has a trolley going through it?
I know.
It's a beautiful place.
It is.
And a lot of us, for a lot of reasons, have an attachment to it. We'll be there on Monday to remember. And I
Rain or
encourage
shine?
neighbors, rain or shine. We encourage neighbors to join us.
Awesome. What's coming up next week?
Oh, Dorchester Day preview, Dorchfest preview, the record company, this place that we'll talk about probably in a future episode a couple of times or three. And the importance of the record company and the artists who are generated out of the two facilities nearby.
Yeah.
So we'll be spotlighting the record company. And we have tons of features. It's like a yearbook, the Dorchester Day edition. It's going to be huge.
Newspaper's looking like a phone book this week.
This next week, it's going to be like 4 times the size of the usual edition. So I'm excited about it. And stay tuned. We have interviews and a lot of updates on what's going on politically in the city as well.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks for coming, Bill.
Thanks, Aaron.
Welcome back to DotLife. We are talking today about a really important topic, which is the importance of artist spaces in cities like Boston and Dorchester. This is something that I think is really dear to me, just with the work that I've been doing at Dorchfest and understanding musicians and the type of work that they put into their craft and where they need a little bit more space to be able to do that and execute at a high level. And we're also talking about visual artists. So I'm excited to invite 2 guests, Bobby Boyd, who is the executive director of the record company, which is also, thank you, one of our great sponsors here at DotLife.
Thank you.
Bobby, thanks for having us. Or thanks for coming.
Vice versa.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for coming.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me. I got you. No worries.
And then also Cat Armistead, who is the lead organizer of the Dorchester Open Studios event, which is starting in a couple of weeks in June.
Yes, yeah, super happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. So we've got two different perspectives on two very similar things. I'm going to have you both kind of introduce yourselves and your organizations a little bit, and then we're going to dive into the importance of artist space. So Cat, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm a jeweler, metalsmith, sculptor, and painter. I do a lot of different stuff. And I got involved with Humphreys Street Studios in around 2019. And kind of there's a big story there we can go into around saving the property and preventing artist displacement. But after that, we wanted to establish better connections with other visual artists in Dorchester who have access to different spaces or don't have access to spaces. So a lot of the work I do as part of Open Studios and outside of that is to help create more opportunities for visual artists in Dorchester to connect with one another.
Awesome. And you live in JP, correct?
I live in JP, yes.
Okay, that's okay. That's allowed.
You
Love
can kick
JP.
me out.
I'm a former JP myself, so I'm okay with that. Bobby, how about
I'm going to try to make mine as brief.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I can't. So Bobby Boyd, Executive Director of the Record Co. We operate out of two locations, one at 960 Mass Ave, which is our flagship location, which has 20 rooms of bookable recording, rehearsal, and practice space. And then we have this building, which we're in now, which was part of a crisis intervention with the Sound Museum closing, that we took over late 2022, 2023. And it had 40 rooms. We put another 50 rooms in it. So we have 90 rooms now of monthly rehearsal space here.
That's a lot of rooms.
Yeah, a lot of work. With about 400 bands, creatives working out of this space now. So between both locations, we serve about 4,000 artists and
That's
creatives
crazy.
a month. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow. Yeah. And this building before was WB Studios, is that right?
It was the old Beasley Media Group
Beasley
building.
Media Group,
A bunch of radio stations here. I'm sure they had a bunch of staff here. We just tried to convert as many rooms as we could. We actually tore down walls and just built rooms.
Wow.
As many rooms as we could because we were just trying to fill the void for all those artists being displaced. There's over 1,000 musicians in the Sound Museum. Not all of them came over.
That was in Alston?
In Alston,
okay.
yeah. And so about 30 to 40% came over. But when we got here, we figured out really quickly that there was also a space need in Dorchester that we had no idea that we were solving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk about what happens. We'll start with you, Bobby. What happens in these spaces? What kind of artists do you have in here?
Mm-hmm.
What do they do here?
Yeah, there's just, I think that's a really great question because a lot of people don't know what an artist building is.
Yeah.
So when it comes across their timeline and they're like, hey, an artist building is closing, there's not a lot of awareness about what actually
What
is
that
in
actually
it.
means.
Yeah, so in these spaces, you just have a creative hub, especially in this space. We have recording studios. We have bands from all different genres that you can think of. We have independent artists. I have one of our favorite friends, Jackson, who's a bagpipe player, just because he can't play.
I've heard him before.
Just because he can't play at home. He's like, I can rent a space here and my wife won't kill me. But we have fashion designers, painters. We have, artists. We have a print shop on the first floor with Patrick.
My logo.
There you go.
Thank you, Patrick. Was designed by in that space.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of creatives, and I think it's an opportunity for these creatives, one, to obviously express their creativity, but two, then to try out business opportunities, right? So like someone like Patrick probably could take the opportunity to go find retail space on his own, but this is a lot more affordable and it gives him the flexibility to try more things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the same case with some of the recording studios and some of the bands here. It's like you get to try and experiment and test things out when you have that kind of flexibility, but also when you can make as much noise as humanly possible. So there's a mixed bag here as far as creativity or creatives in the building, but I think there's a big part of the creative economy here, and you see that with like Ugly Duck Studios that has several employees. And, there's businesses in this building that actually has employees and staff. So I think when we're talking about the creative economy, you can't look away from these kinds of buildings and say that you don't care about them if you care about the creative economy and how that is actually moving in the city.
Yeah, and Kat, talk about the same kind of situation over at Humphreys Street, but from more of a visual arts perspective.
Yeah, I love what you said about the creative economy and kind of how we value that and sort of like how we invest in creativity. It makes me think about how we invest in creativity in communities and value that, like not just monetarily, but also in terms of like the cultural value. So yeah, at Humphrey Street, we've got over 40 artists, ranging from fabricators who create, like a lot of furniture for different restaurants in the city, other huge projects. We have paper makers, we have fashion designers as well, painters, ceramicists, and there's a lot even beyond that. We have one of, if not the only, non-school associated blacksmith shop, like fully functional. There's a power hammer in there, and it's also like you're saying, it's a space for community. So it's a catalyst to create these creative connections, to push one another creatively, and kind of like grow our opportunities together and collaborate. And I think that sort of strengthens us overall, but also individually as artists, just knowing people where you can ask, what are the grants that are coming out? Kind of what do you have coming up? Do you need support? And there's a lot of really cool sort of collaboration where a friend of mine who's a stone carver is having our steel worker Jillian fabricate eyebrows for the face. This is Westy, for the face that he's making for a show. So yeah, we've got a lot of different people. I want to call out JPix is someone who inspires me a lot. They're a photographer, an Upham's Corner native, and a lot of their work has to do with Dorchester and kind of like the families, the spaces, the communities there. And yeah, the Creative Studio is another pretty big fabrication shop where they're doing a ton of screen printing. They work a lot with Boston Public Schools and other clients and just do a lot of really, really cool graphic work there too.
I think, you both kind of touched on that community collaboration piece. Being a creative and being an artist is more than just being, although I'm sure there are moments, I have to preface this and say I'm not a creative or an artist, so I'm basically taking this from my boyfriend who is and from people I know, but you definitely create on your own, but then coming together and being inspired by each other and having those collaborative encounters has got to be useful. I think you mentioned, Kat, that there was someone who left to give their space to someone else and then kind of regretted it, right? Because they weren't getting that collaborative experience.
Yeah. So that was Christina Tedesco, who's amazing, who's part of Art Stays Here, which is working to prevent artist displacement in the city of Boston. And she, I think, made the right call because she wasn't able to get to the studio as often, and she wanted it to go to somebody that really needed it. But since then, we miss her, and I think she also kind of misses being around that. It's something.
The energy, right?
Yeah, exactly. For me, I got out of college and I had no critiques and like no kind of space to get feedback on my work and to until I found a Craigslist ad for my studio at Humphreys Street. And since then, it's just really become, I've seen my work kind of improve, and I've seen people around me really grow in the building from having access to one another, which is really cool. Yeah.
Bobby, when you and I first met, I was lucky enough to take a tour of this building, not all 90 studios, but several of them. And I was blown away by how much equipment and how many things are here and how difficult that must be when you are displaced from a place like the Sound Museum. Talk about how they're using these spaces.
Yeah, it goes back to just, I think the artists are making such a significant commitment to these spaces, but they're also like beautifying the area they're around. But when you're talking about what goes into these rooms, it's amazing. I mean, you see, this is a temporary solution. We were only supposed to be here for a couple of years, fortunately
We'll
enough.
talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, we're going to be here a little bit longer, but I say that just to point out the fact that the amount of commitment that they're putting into these rooms, you wouldn't think that this was a temporary solution. Like there's a serious recording studio just down the hall that's decked out.
Yeah.
And there's some of these rooms where you look at the investment that these folks are making into their creative careers. You would say, wow, they really believe in this thing. One of the issues that I have is when we constantly have this disruption where we uproot them and they find another space and they uproot them and they find another space, I think you do the exact opposite. You start to create the doubt. You start to create that lack of confidence. You start to create mental health issues.
Demoralizing,
right?
Yeah.
So then you start to wonder, is this thing even worth it?
Yeah.
And can I continue to do this? And then I think that's when you start to see, folks start leaving the city, right? And I was just talking to Jim Lucchese, who was the president of Berkeley, about the fact that they're graduating amazing students, but there's actually not economy here.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, these folks are getting these amazing degrees, but, like, where is the culture? Where is the music spaces? Where are the venues?
Right.
Where's the creative economy for them to jump in? We're doing our job, or at least our part,
Right.
to try to slow it down as much as possible, but it's not enough. So I think the commitment that these folks are making in the room, I've been blown away. I'm like, it's unreal when you walk and tour some of these spaces. And that's why I think open studios are important.
Yeah.
Because when folks actually get to come out and see a space like this, you get to see the commitment. And then when it comes across your timeline that an artist building is closing, maybe you might have some attachment because you know someone who's a creative, or you know someone's a drummer or whatever, and you can say, I don't want to see that close. So then you start to join that advocacy.
I mean, literally, where will they go if they can't be, like, you can't just pick this up and take it to a storefront, which
Right.
A, is not affordable.
Right.
B, there's not 90 of them sitting around waiting for people
Right.
to take over. And it's not as though they can just create a space in their home. There's really not a place for people to go if these types of buildings close down.
Yeah, it's not. And it's not unique to just Boston. I know we're talking
Right.
about, the state of Massachusetts and Boston. It's not unique to just Boston.
Yeah.
I mean, the average musician makes less than $51,000
Yeah.
annually.
Right.
The average rent cost is over three grand.
That's
right?
crazy.
But the creative economy produces almost 27 billion, right? But we can't carve out any space
Right.
with that amount of money to say, hey, let's preserve some of these artist spaces around the city. Let's make sure that our cities don't become gray walls.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, not to mention what you're losing,
Yeah.
not just monetarily,
Right.
but the enhancement and enrichment in our lives with these
Right.
things. Yeah.
So,
So we talked a little bit about what will happen if these places close, but I think it's even more like the loss of livelihood. You talked about demoralization, but have you seen people, either have you seen people just stop creating?
I've seen a ton of people. I'm sure you've seen them as well, but there's a ton of people that just, the displacement is too much.
Yeah.
But also the lack of respect that you start to feel as a creative in the city, right? The Boston music scene used to be something that people admired back in the days when it was a little more connected than it is now.
Yeah.
But now it just seems like it's an afterthought, right? Like, we can close all of these venues because we want to put up biotech, or, want to have
Luxury
all these,
apartments.
right?
Yeah.
Or we can have all these colleges not paying taxes, and they buy up all the real estate in the best locations,
Yeah.
and they can have at it and keep charging whatever they want to charge. So it's just like, okay, so when do we stop and look and say, okay, we're creating a problem that's going to lead to mental health issues and other issues if we don't stop? Because we have already taken music out of the schools,
Yeah.
right? And it's already having a negative impact on our children.
Right.
So we're starting to see how that is actually affecting adults. They're talking about music therapy and how helpful it is for people. So there's a lot of opportunity to create work for folks.
Yeah.
But we're not really focusing on the solution. We're just like, well, we can create one event, or we can bring them downtown for a little bit, or we can do this, and it'll keep them quiet long enough, and maybe that'll go away.
Yeah.
So they're always looking to sweep it under the rug. So
Well,
to
and
speak.
it's a shame because we do have that pipeline in Boston of Berkeley and of Mass College of Art and Design, where we get some of the premier artists in the country, if
Yeah.
not the world, who come out of those places, and then we lose them. I've had
Right.
so many Dorchfest artists move, and I can't book them again because once they're done at Berkeley, they're
Yeah.
gone.
And when they leave, they don't claim
They're
Boston
not
anymore.
coming back. Yeah.
They're like, oh, we're not from Boston. Like, some really cool artists that are from here. Just, it's really unfortunate because my niece is in a band, Mint Green,
Okay.
and she just went on the West Coast, and I'm like, geez.
I was gonna say we got to get her in here, but yeah.
And did the normal routine, Boston Calling, did all
Yeah.
the shows, did all the gigs, but again, just the opportunity
Yeah.
is not here.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is that everyone says they care about the arts until it's time to care about the arts.
Well, that's the thing too, and that's part of the reason, not to go on a Dorchfest tangent, but part of the reason, part of the mission that we started the event with was it was coming out of COVID, and we wanted to make sure that artists were being paid for their work because they were really struggling at the time. But the sentiment that many people have of, well, we're giving them exposure, that should be enough. That is, no one eats with exposure.
No.
We really need to value and pay and
And that's the thing as well, is that I think that it's really insensitive for venues and business institutions to think that you can just bring a band.
Yeah.
You know what bringing a band does for a bar or
Right.
to any venue? It lights that place up.
Yep.
So you want to pay this group that had to load up all of their gear into an Uber.
Yep.
They had to get to the venue, unload the gear, set the gear up, play this amazing performance, tear down the gear, load them back in the
Yeah.
Uber, and you want to pay them a couple
And they're like,
$100.
well, it's only an hour. It's like
Yeah.
6 hours of their
No,
time.
it is.
Yeah.
And that couple $100 just got wasted on the Uber. Right. So
Right.
what did they really make?
Yeah.
And they're doing it for their own exposure. Maybe I gain a new fan, maybe I sell a piece of merch.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case. I think artists' pay has to be at the forefront too.
Absolutely.
And we have to pay them fairly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Kat, you mentioned a couple of folks who are in the Humphreys Street Studio space. Are there any other artists that you would like to highlight?
Yeah, I wanted to highlight Franklin, who's been kind of my longest collaborator at Humphrey Street. We've done a few kind of emerging artist shows, one of which happened at the local hand last year, and that one was great. We were able to get a grant, so we were able to give all the participating artists a stipend. And I think it's always, I love this conversation, and I'm thinking, like, in the back of my head, I'm thinking about my budget for open studios. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, am I paying people enough? Right? Like,
No,
it's good.
we're not, and I'm not either. And I don't ever want artists to think that we think that's enough, but at least
Yeah.
it's something to get them, some
Right.
compensation.
Right.
Recognition.
And it's
Yeah.
good, like, building it for next year and holding each other accountable in that
Yeah.
way is awesome. But yeah, so we paid those artists a stipend of $50 each. A lot of shows you apply for as a visual artist, you have to pay to apply.
Yeah.
Sometimes up to like $45. And then most times you get rejections back, right? And so talking about mental health and talking about how do you sustain your practice when you're kind of getting told no, the finances aren't adding up, it's really challenging.
Yeah.
So part of the work Franklin and I try and do together is to, just create spaces for especially newer artists to show their work. And he's a painter and a designer. He does this crazy stuff where he like fully wraps big vans sometimes. So sometimes
cool.
there'll be like a big van in the studio parking lot and Franklin's there with a blowtorch, wrapping that. So he inspires me a lot. His whole saying is more love is okay. And so he's all about kind of spreading positivity in a very real way. And I mentioned Jay. Jillian is a really cool steel artist who does a lot of public art pieces. She just had a commission in Portland to do a big piece in one of their main squares. And I just admire how sharp all of her work is. She's got a really strong visual language. And I just love, like, as a metal worker, I love women who work in steel. I just think it's awesome and we need more of it. I think those are kind of most of my shout outs.
Awesome. How about you, Bobby?
Oh, man, there's too many.
Just a few of the 90. Or you said actually 400,
Well,
right?
I said Jackson. He's
Yeah.
one of my favorites. Ray Liriano. I'll give Carlos, who manages the building, a shout out. He's an amazing.
Carlos is great.
Yeah, he makes lo-fi beat tapes and does an open aux. Check it out.
I didn't know he was a
cool.
performer as well.
Yeah,
see,
so-
he's been complimenting the people I've had in, and he's just sneaky not even telling me that he's
so he
the
does
guy.
this. He does this thing called Numb Summer, where he brings a bunch of producers out and just kind of like really has like a producer community where they showcase their beats and tracks and things like that. So I sure he has a new one coming up. So Numb Summer. I love the folks over at Ugly Duck, and I love a gentleman, Wacko, who's in the corner. He's also an engineer, a producer. There's just so many amazing people in the building, and I'm sure I'm going to miss some, and folks might call me out. But there's a lot of amazing folks in the building, but also at 960. I mean, we have one of my favorite artists is Neem. She's a Palestinian hip-hop artist. I think she's really doing creative visuals, but also she's just an amazing talent. And there's just a ton of bands like that we see on a daily basis. And my biggest thing is just, I just want to see them all win.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that I think that can happen, and I think you were touching on it a bit, is just that, make more love.
More love is okay.
More love is okay. I think that also speaks to the community that I think artists have to take some responsibility for the community we build too. We're always talking about folks like either, the Record Co. or Humphreys or whatever, the effort that they're putting forward. I think the artists have to put some effort forward too. And what I mean by that is when places like Great White or others open or close, we have to make sure that we're not just going there when our shows
Yeah.
are coming up, right? So we have to we can't be kind of selfish about that and say, well, I'm only going because my friends are performing. We have to make sure that we're going to these events and making them popular as well, so that they stick around.
Yeah.
They really rely on that, and we can't be upset if they go away if we only show up when our friends are playing.
There is definitely a lack of venue space in Boston, Greater Boston. You know, there used to when I first moved here 10 years ago, I think there were more venues open that people could go perform at, and that's part of the reason I started the Tiny Dot series is just really to highlight. There's no lack of artists who want to be highlighted. It's just finding the places. You know, one thing that really kind of bothers me is that you know, both in Buffalo and Rochester, New York, there's concerts on the park. There's like different outdoor venues that showcase smaller artists, local artists, or even like traveling places like Rusted Root was always like a constant because of, I don't know, they just came to Rochester a lot. I don't see that here. Like we don't have a small stage on the Malibu Beach or something where people can come play, and I think we should.
It's a permit. It's zoning and permitting, and they make it hard for artists to do those kind of things. And let me not get into a political firestorm there, but I think, you know, we can make this city a little bit more easy for artists.
Yeah.
You know, we have the space out back. We want to amplify it, but I think also. And that goes back to me just trying to figure out like what artists are doing, create a directory, find out what everyone's doing. We have space, we have venues, we need people to amplify those spaces.
Yeah.
We would love to work with artists. But I think also working with the communities and finding out what do they want. You know, maybe there's a certain genre of music that they would love to have played in particular, you know, particular holiday or whatever might be coming up, and those are networks that we can build and say, hey, we have this group of bands, we're trying to put on a thing here. Is that something we can do? And getting the community involved from a perspective that they can start advocating for wanting that in those spaces. Because I'm sure the community would love to see, like, you know, Dorch Fest and stuff like that. More people would love to. I always enjoy myself when I go and just scoot around the town. Usually dragging my daughter out, but it's usually a blast, like seeing all the bands. And there's usually most of the bands that are
play
at the
here.
record go. So,
Awesome.
Kat, you are organizing an event that does exactly that. It kind of showcases the artists that you have in your facility. Can you talk about Open Studios?
Yeah. It's funny because I was just trying to get all that permit stuff squared away today. It's like, ooh. I don't want to go into it too much, but it is hard.
We'll have that session offline, the three of us.
we don't want to get in trouble.
It is hard to throw events in Boston. I see it a lot. My partner's a DJ. He's one of the people who's going to be playing on Saturday at our Open Studios, and a lot of them are, you know, looking for venues to throw events at, and it's really hard to make the financials add up with the venue cost. Like one venue in particular that we like a lot for space reasons charges even the hour that you're setting up. And it's just kind of like, how are artists supposed to make a living doing this kind of stuff? It's tricky to make it work. But on the positive side, so we're for Open Studios, we've got a few things going on. I've been encouraging a lot of people, or we've been encouraging a lot of people to host demos and workshops so people can really get a sense for the process and not just the final product. I think that's really important because it's not a linear process, and it's a lot of people I talk to about art are like, oh, I could never do that. And I think everyone really has creativity, and so the more
I don't think I do.
I bet you do, though.
We'll see.
Isn't this creativity?
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
true. That's true.
Undoubtedly.
What's the date and time for
Oh,
Open
yeah.
Studios?
Great question. It's June 7th and 8th, and it's going to be from 12 to 5 p.m.
Nice.
We'll have a collaborative mural painting project where anyone can come and help paint a mural. Shout out to Phoebes and Ananda for that. And we're going to have a passport activity for kids that I stole from DSNI's Multicultural Fest last year, where you give stamps to like a few different people in the building, and the kids get a sheet of paper and they try and get all the stamps. And we'll also have cornhole and like dancing. We'll have Fresh Food Generations food truck
Nice.
on Saturday. And
they
then
might have cocktail license by then. I don't know. I know they're
that would
working
be
on it.
fun.
Yeah.
But I think there's a permit I didn't apply for.
Oh,
that I
yeah,
would need
that's
to apply for that.
This is Boston. I forgot. Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
you
we're
will be
excited.
shutting down Humphrey Street for.
So we actually pivoted a little bit. We're shutting down Humphrey Street would kind of cause like a bunch of different little neighborhoods, a big traffic jam. So what we're going to do is we're going to shut down Elder Street, which is sort of like perpendicular to
Okay.
Humphreys, but still right in front of where our building is. So it was a good kind of a good feedback we got from the city in the permitting process, and something we feel good about. And talking about like the local community and the neighbors, I totally agree with what y'all were saying earlier. We were out giving letters to the people who live on Elder Street saying, hi, we're going to close your street in a couple weeks, but here's all the fun things that we want you to come and participate in. And I think something I want to be better about doing this year in particular is hosting after the event like a feedback session where they can talk about what they liked about it, things they want to improve, things they wanted to see.
Yeah.
So it can become the kind of thing that people who don't have a super strong connection to Humphrey Street necessarily are still like looking forward to and excited about every year, hopefully.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
really smart.
Bobby, you've done similar events in this location and I think in your Mass Ave location, right,
Yep.
where you just have people come in, you've got drinks, and people are set up in
Yeah.
their studios. No drinks, water.
No, definitely, and it's always great to just have people out. Most recently we had a evening of gratitude at our location at 960. We turned the whole place into kind of an interactive night where you could go walk through. One studio was a live podcast where we had Amy Bennett from Art Stays Here.
Oh, I love her.
And then we had a couple rooms where folks could go in and pick up instruments and play with bands.
Oh, that's cool.
And then there was one room that was doing karaoke, and that was Ray Liriano, and his room was overpacked. I mean, like everyone loved to be in his room, and it was just this. He has an amazing band. If anyone
He
hasn't
does.
heard,
If you missed Ray's karaoke night, he'll
Oh
be
my
at
God.
Dorchfest,
He-
30 Beaumont, 1 o'clock.
he's
Nice.
worth seeing. He's
Yeah,
worth
he's
it.
great.
His energy, the band is amazing. And then we had Leo Blanco and the Latonius Monk, which was our live main performance at Studio A, and it was
That's an
amazing.
awesome name. I love that.
But he did like this Latin version of the Latonius Monk.
Yeah.
The Thelonious Monk. Sorry.
Thelonious, yeah.
And it was like unreal. I mean, he was inside the piano pulling things and
What?
playing with. He was manipulating the piano in a way that I've never seen in my life, which was really, really cool. But to your point, we have these amazing events there. We like to get the community involved. We want to do more. And then even here at 55, like I said, we have a space out back. It's a fenced-in area that can hold easily
Yeah.
1,000 people. Right now, trying to raise some money for a stage, but we would love to be a community stage where anyone from Humphreys or anyone from anyone, and they just think about an event and say, "Hey, let's put it on the calendar, and it's yours."
Yeah.
We're
I
not-
think we need that. I think that's a really
Yeah.
cool idea.
And for us, I think, when you're talking about cost and people charging you for setup, like that's the stuff that we're trying to get away from. Like we're not even thinking of it from a situation like how much money can we make on it. We just want to amplify it.
Yeah.
We just want to get as many people excited about the arts in this building, or not just in this building, but in this city, as possible, so that it can create an advocacy moment for all of the work that we're doing. So when they see, again, an artist space being deprioritized on their timeline, they can say,
Yeah.
I know what that's about. I know why I care about that.
Right.
I know I've been to one.
What
and-
that brings to my life
Right.
and to my community.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Kat, talk about your experience or the experience of the folks at Humphrey Street in saving that space and how you were able to convert it to what it is today.
Yeah, that is like a long topic. So let me know if I'm going too long on it. But
We talked about it last night, too.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially I joined Humphrey Street sort of later than a lot of my co-tenants. And in 2019, it was a space I came to mostly nights and weekends. It was really quiet. And I didn't know many people there. And through, from 2001 until very recently, like 2021. Amy will be mad if I get my dates wrong, so I'm going to do my best to remember. The studio was owned by this kind of visionary artist duo, Neil Wedette and Joe Wheelwright. And Joe Wheelwright has several pieces in Dorchester, like public artworks, mostly in stone, I think. And they wanted to kind of leave a legacy. Like they found this property. It was a dry cleaning facility and it was unused, and they saw kind of what it could be. So they led kind of that vision, and then they unfortunately both passed away, and the other owners were tired of this old building that was falling apart and all these artist tenants. It's a lot to manage. And so they were interested in selling. And as the tenants, we found out about this, I think when it was pretty close to a sale going through. So, from 2020 to like 2021, we had 2 sales very nearly go through. Like we got
not
notices.
With the intention of keeping artist space.
No, I mean developers, like they won't say that they're gonna definitely tear it down, but the listing price was $3 million, and the property has a great view of the city line, and it's kind of like you can put 2 and 2 together on that. But we organized with. And I think hope came and went at different parts of the process.
Yeah.
And I say it was largely Christina, who I mentioned, Franklin, and Amy, who really led the charge on that in so many ways. And I think what I learned a lot from them in that process was just how important going down several different avenues is. We were able to work with a lot of different news outlets like WBUR and the Boston Globe to get publicity on it. We started talking with the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture very early on in the process. And we did, some like guerrilla activism with exhibitions that we held, where it was the banners that they bring to a lot of the Arts Days Here events were part of a Fort Point show, talking about displacement. And I think it's looking at all the tools that you have in your tool set and trying to be creative about how to use them. And frankly, we were also really, really lucky. Part of the big reason why neither of those 2 sales went through, in addition to the advocacy and the letters of support and kind of all of that type of work, is that there is a tank of chemicals buried under the ground of Humphreys Street, and it's from when it was a dry cleaning facility.
Okay.
And it's the groundwater, like you don't want to grow vegetables on the property and eat them. And so these potential buyers are looking at a property that they'd have to tear down, build something new. But not only that, they'd have to also dig this tank of chemicals out, do environmental remediation, and deal with all these artists that don't want to be displaced.
Chemicals.
Yeah, so
saving the day.
Yes.
Bobby, are there chemicals here?
Might have to go find some.
Let's bury some real quick.
Yeah. But I think what I learned a lot at the start of that process was we had a big Zoom meeting with all of the tenants, and people were like, oh, maybe we should be doing community work. And it's like, you never want to be caught unawares like that, right? Like this conversation is really useful for that too, I think. But it's part of why I've tried to work on the Open Studios projects and on the exhibitions projects, because I think the community work is equally, if not more important than like me sitting in my studio doing something. It's how we sustain ourselves long term. And to your point, it's how people have like a frame of reference of what an artist space does, what the power of an artist space is, and how it can impact them as an individual.
And I know you're trying to have those conversations right now, Bobby. You're a little earlier in the process, obviously trying to kind of mimic what they were able to do at Humphreys Street. You want to talk about where you are?
Yeah, we had our first town hall for the building. Last night was a really good turnout. We had
that's good.
Amy Bennett, had some folks from Atlantic Development.
New Atlantic,
New
they're
Atlantic,
great. Yeah.
And then STA Design, we had some other developers that were there, which was shocking because I didn't think these folks were going to come out. But there's some really good. Not all developers are bad developers.
That's true. Right.
So I don't want to paint with a broad brush. I think there's some really great people that are really trying to slow this thing down. And I think, before I get to town hall, there's just buildings that we've built with biotech firms that are empty right now. So like we're rushing to create all this industry for biotech, but the buildings aren't full. So there's another issue. Maybe they're doing too much. But our town hall was last night. We had a great turnout. We're just really trying to get in front of having the conversation about
Well,
creating.
just to back you up a
Yeah.
little bit. So, what is the situation here? You guys, you mentioned
Yeah.
that your 2 years is
Yeah.
this is temporary, but you're hoping to prevent that. So, just give
Yeah.
us a sense of where you are.
Well, so it started as a 2-year project. We were supposed to be here for 2 years. We're supposed to be out in January 2025. By that time, 290 North Beacon Street over in Alston was supposed to be a thing.
It's not.
It's
started
not.
yet, right?
It's not started. It's still in idea phase. I
Yeah.
think they're taking RFPs for developers now. But
that will stay artist space, or is that still not?
yeah, it's gonna be
okay.
it's gonna be mixed use. It's gonna be artists and housing.
Housing. Okay.
So
Artist housing, or yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
you know developers, some of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that property, we were hoping that by the time our 2 years came up, that we could kind of like hand that over, like you take it now. That didn't happen. So we would not be here for one without the generosity of our property owner,
Yeah.
POB Capital, which was Center Court.
So shout out to them, because
shout out to them, definitely.
they can be not very helpful to sometimes.
Yeah, so definitely a shout out to them, and we were able to work with them, get a license extension for 2 more years. So I'm in conversation with POB Capital and the team over there all the time. I'm
Yeah.
like, keep me.
Did anybody put an offer in yet?
Keep me in, because we just sold the building next door, the 75,
Yeah.
the WB building right
Yeah.
next to Southline. So they're like, that's supposed to be, 750 units, 2 buildings, supposedly some affordable housing, but you know how that goes.
Yeah.
No one's going to be able to afford a $750,000 condo in the city. But anyways, we got a license extension, and we're just trying to really now plan for January 2027 and what that might look like. So we're just trying to get the artist community together. We're trying to create some moments of advocacy. We want to have as many events as humanly possible, so that can all lead up. That can be some momentum leading up to January. So hopefully by that time we'll have enough.
So is your goal to keep this a permanent artist location?
I would love that. I don't
Yeah.
think it's possible.
Okay.
I think it's very expensive to keep a building like this in the city. I mean, the footprint and everything that's
Yeah.
here, it would be very costly. But I do think if the city and all these foundations that hold all of this money, like it's theirs, got together and wanted to do something for the artist community, they could do it.
Yeah. I would hate to lose this in Dorchester. I think Dorchester needs it. To your point, there's a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
artists here who kind of emerged once they had a space.
I just think it's not heavily prioritized.
No.
And we're in a mayor election year, so who knows? Maybe we
Yeah.
put enough pressure on folks where they finally hear some of the pain points of the artist community. I think it's really important for the artist community to get together
Yeah.
and put a Bill of Rights together and put it on, cars no longer in the mayor's office of arts and culture, but to put that on the desk of whoever's incoming. Instead of them always telling us what we should have, is to tell them what we need.
What we need, yeah. So let's just wrap this conversation with what would you ask of folks? And Bobby, just to add to what you just said, you'd like people to reach out to their electeds, but is there
Yeah.
anything else that would be helpful to you right now?
To me, I'm doing everything I can, and my team at the Record Co., I think I want to partner with folks like, Humphreys. I want to partner with anyone who wants that partnership. I think collaboratively together we can get a lot more done
Yeah.
than working on the silos. I know, like, I'm busy doing all of my work, but our work is so adjacent.
Yeah.
So I ask the community, especially the artist community, to step up and do their part. There's a bunch of amazing organizations out here doing a lot of work,
Yeah.
and no one knows how hard it is to do this work. But it's really rewarding when you can see the artists participate. So if the artist community can participate in whatever that is, if that's sharing a post, if that's showing up to a town hall, if that's going to a community meeting, if that's reaching out to your elected officials, if that's creating a list of resources, whatever you can do, I think that can go a long way.
And support each other.
Yeah.
And as you said, that really helped with Humphreys Street staying
Yeah.
intact.
Yeah. I mean, many hands make light work. I
Yeah.
totally agree. I did want to chime in on one thing I left out of the Humphrey Street story, which is that we did also get a lot of help from the Mayor's Office of Arts and
Yeah,
Culture. They put forward like $2 million of the $3 million we needed, and then New Atlantic was able to put a proposal together to build affordable housing. Some of it artists prioritized on the back lot, which was just grass previously. So that's kind of like how that all all worked out. But I totally agree. I think we need to continue to prioritize saving artist spaces, and continue that conversation with the city. As far as it relates to Humphreys Street, I think coming to Open Studios is like the main thing I want people to do.
June 7th and 8th, 12
June
to
7th
5.
and 8th, 12 to 5, yes. And giving us feedback about, how we can be better, how we can have, more connection with the arts community in Dorchester. We moved Dorchester Open Studios to one site just so we can control like the visitor experience for artists, so it feels like a lot of visitors are coming, and because a lot of Dorchester arts organizations have been in a little bit of a state of flux. But in the future, I'd love to do Dorchester Open Studios with a bunch of sites and talk that through. But I think we need more collaborators to make that happen.
Yeah.
So my door is always open for those conversations too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I have one more question for both of you. Where is your favorite place to go to eat in Dorchester?
Oh, man.
Does one of you want to go first?
Oh, that's a tough
Bobby,
one.
you live
It's a
in
tough
Dorchester,
question.
right?
In Dorchester, I'd have to say bread.
Okay.
Lower Mills.
Yeah, all right.
It's consistent. I'm big on consistency. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Kat?
I gotta check that place out. I have to say Comfort Kitchen.
Oh, that's a good one.
Upham's
Comfort
Corner.
Kitchen.
They were in JP for a bit. Do
They
you remember?
were, yes.
Yeah.
I went there, and yeah, I go there all
Yeah.
the time. It's
Comfort Kitchen is
that's
excellent.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they also worked with Franklin. Did the posters in the bathroom there.
Okay.
Nora, who's a stone carver at Humphreys Street, did the bench out front, and Jem, who's one of the fabricators, did a lot of their outdoor seating. So they've also like consistently been working with us on projects that they need, which I really appreciate.
And they were part of, and I'm not going to remember the name, the incubator space, which now has new
that
restaurants
Commonwealth
in
Kitchen?
Commonwealth
Yeah.
Kitchen. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I really want to have an episode about that whole model because that's also very cool.
Yeah.
So a lot of cool stuff happening in Dorchester, guys. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for coming.
Thank you.
Bobby. Thanks again for being such a great supporter, and
Anytime.
love having you both here. So thanks.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Of
I
course.
really appreciate it. It's been really fun.
DotLife is supported by The Record Company, Boston's leading provider of accessible music creation spaces. The Record Company is addressing the critical shortage of affordable creative space in our city, serving over 4,000 monthly users across 131 communities. They've preserved 47,000 square feet of professional studio and rehearsal space at rates 60 to 90% below market value, ensuring Boston's musicians have a place to create, regardless of economic means. But they're more than just affordable space. They're building career pathways through partnerships with Bunker Hill Community College, offering professional certification programs that lead to sustainable music careers. This vital work is at risk. As creative spaces continue to disappear across Boston, the Record Company needs community support to maintain these essential resources. Their Amplify Boston campaign directly funds space preservation and career development programs. Visit therecordcompany.org today. That's therecordco.org to donate, become a monthly supporter, or learn about partnership opportunities. Every contribution helps keep Boston's music ecosystem thriving. The Record Company, creating accessible pathways to music creation since 2010. Welcome back to DotLife. We're here for this week's Tiny Dot concert with what I think is our most unique musician so far, Eric Royer from Royer's One Man Band. Nice to have you.
Thanks, Aaron. Nice to be here, and it's fun to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. You are also a Dorchester resident. What part of Dorchester are you in?
I live down by Ashmont on Codman Hill.
Okay.
And but I've lived here. I've lived in Dorchester on and off since the 80s. I moved. The first place I lived in Boston was Savin Hill.
Okay.
So I've been here a while.
But you're originally, I think you mentioned, from Arizona. Is that right?
No, I grew up in Haverhill.
Okay.
And then lived in Boston, in Dorchester, and then my wife and I moved to Arizona
Okay.
in the 80s, late 80s into the 90s, and then we came back.
And that's where you were inspired to put together a one-man band.
Yes.
Talk about that.
So I started doing this in Arizona. They had they had this thing called Downtown Saturday Night, which was a street festival every week. I think they still have it. And
This is, you said Tucson?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it's beautiful weather most of the year, so
Yeah.
it worked out well. And I would try to get my friends to go down and play music, but it was hard to wrangle people to do it all
Yeah.
the time. And we were just playing for tips, so there wasn't a lot of incentive all the always. But I wanted to do it, so I thought of, well, maybe I could play solo somehow. And I took an old guitar and I started building foot pedals and stuff to play guitar while I played banjo. I'm primarily a banjo player, not a
Okay.
guitar player.
Okay.
But I've been playing guitar lately.
I thought you had a banjo at the last Dorchfest that you played.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Will you have a banjo this year?
I might.
Okay.
I go back and forth from banjo and guitar.
I love the banjo, so hopefully
Okay.
you can bring one. So you started putting this together. There's a lot of instruments here.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk through which ones you have in one unit?
Well, it essentially lets me play the rhythm section of a band with my feet.
Okay.
So my right foot does the rhythm. The right foot pushes a pedal down, which plucks a guitar.
Can you show?
And a bass. So here, my right foot, I'll push it down. It plucks the bass and the guitar chord,
Okay.
and then it also controls the snare drum.
Okay.
All that happens when I push my right foot down. And then my left foot pushes down a series of pedals that can change the chords all the way up the neck of
Okay.
both instruments. So I don't know if you know what a capo is, but
Yeah.
it's like there's a whole bunch of capos
Okay.
that are all pedal controlled, and then a spring pulls it back up out of position
Okay.
when I release the pedal.
So this is 4 instruments in one unit?
Bass, guitar, drum, and then there's a cowbell, which I didn't have engaged, but sometimes I use that also.
I love the golf ball.
Oh, yeah. It sounds good, so I kept it on there. Yeah.
So you're a carpenter by trade.
Yes.
Did that, do you think that training or that experience helped you kind of?
Definitely,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I've never been afraid to take things apart
Yeah.
and, figure out how they go back together and stuff. And sometimes, like, a lot of this stuff was just stuff I found, like, the copper pipe. And I've learned a lot of these building things through doing carpentry and handyman type stuff.
Okay.
Where I just have to figure out how to do things by improv.
How long did it take you to get this to the point where you felt like you could perform with it? Not just build it, but also like you have to train your body.
Well, I grew up in the punk rock world, so it took about one day. And I was like, okay, I'm ready.
Okay, nice.
Because I wasn't worried about how bad it was.
Yeah.
And then I refined it
Yeah.
as I was going, and hopefully it's gotten better.
I think it's pretty refined. Yeah,
Okay, good.
I would say that. My older sister, one year for a family talent show, she was a one-man band. She was not quite as sophisticated, but maybe if I can find some photos,
I'd love
she'd
that.
kill me. But
Oh, I'd love to see that. I have a collection of photos of one-man bands. So
do you?
that'll go
Okay,
right-
I'll
right
see if I
in
can
there.
dig it up. It would be a good test if she watches or not, because I'll get a phone call. If
yeah.
she, yeah. So you play mostly bluegrass, but I would definitely say there's some infusion of blues.
Well, yeah, like the stuff, yeah, like when I play the electric guitar, I wind up playing more rock-based stuff or jazz or whatever. But my main thing that I've done with this setup was bluegrass.
Okay.
Has been bluegrass.
And you play bluegrass separately from the one-man band. You have another band.
Yeah, I play in various things around Boston, but the thing that I do regularly is the Royer Family Band with my daughter and 2 other guys, Sean Staples and Tim Kelly, and we play pretty much traditional bluegrass. I play banjo and we sing songs and stuff.
Okay. And where can people catch you regularly?
The first Monday of every month at Satellite, and the second Monday of every month at the Beehive in Boston.
Okay. And for those who don't know, because I did not, Satellite is the old Atwood's Tavern, which you
Right.
had a hand in creating that wooden interior.
Yeah, I did the renovations in there
Yeah.
with a friend of mine.
It's a beautiful bar. If you haven't been to Atwood/Satellite, you should definitely go. It's got a great venue for small, an intimate concert. It's
Yeah,
really-
it's a good place, and so many places have been closing. It's nice
Yeah.
that Satellite has continued to keep music happening there,
Yeah.
which is good.
we are huge supporters of that. I had talked to you a little bit before about changing keys and changing strum patterns and things, and you can do that while you're playing. How does that work?
Well, the right foot, depending on when I push it down or what pattern I do, changes rhythm. So I can do the main rhythm I do is just a steady, like 2 feel or whatever.
Yeah.
But if I just change that pattern with my right foot, I can change the rhythm. And then that all, and I can accentuate all that stuff by doing stuff that isn't, that is syncopated or whatever with
Yeah.
my hands.
Okay.
So like, so it all combines into other rhythms.
Is there any time signature that you don't like to do with the setup?
I always try to. I really only do 4/4, like basic and,
Yeah.
and waltz. Time.
Okay, 3/4.
I've been trying, 6/8 and different variations, but they're all sort of standard.
Yeah,
time
okay.
signatures.
And then what about if you want to change keys? I know you've got the capo-esque kind of.
Yeah, so I can change keys. I don't play major or minor chords with my feet. I
Okay.
just play their partial chords. It's the root and the fifth,
Okay.
and then octaves of those. So what happens is if I'm playing what I think of as the G chord on the guitar machine on this whole setup, I can play a G minor, or I can play a G major. And what I'm doing down there doesn't really matter because there's no third in it.
You're right. Okay.
And so then I have all the pedals. So I've got like a major and minor of all these different chords. So I can change key as long as I have, I just have to think of what key I'm like. if I'm in G, like I got the 1 chord and then the 4 chord and the 5 chord. And then I could change to D, so now I have, this is the 1 chord, and that's the 5 chord.
Yeah.
So now I'm in D, and now I'll go to C, like, it's 1, 4, 5, back to G. 1, 4, 5. So it's just, I have to think of where the 1 is, I guess.
Have you done it so much now that it's just,
Yes.
you don't have to think about it?
Yeah. I used to have to see my feet, but now I don't.
You don't have a shoe on that foot.
No, so my left foot, I need my toe available to push the pedals down. And then this shoe is special because it has a pin in it,
Oh, yeah.
and it hooks into this, there's a hinge,
Yep.
or there's a groove or whatever in this metal thing that keeps my foot locked in
So you
one
don't slide.
place.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't always have that, and my foot would slowly creep forward, and
Okay.
it was kind of, I had to always use the muscles in my leg to keep my foot back, and it was
I
kinda-
bet you'd be sore by the end of a set.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I came up with this.
Yeah.
And I've often thought if drummers might be able to do something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an issue with playing the bass drum, but maybe it is for some.
They have one big quad and one small quad.
Well, that's. I just posted this thing on Facebook about my old shoe and how, like, I calculated I've done like over like 100 million depressions.
Reps.
Like, I don't know how true that is, but it seems like it
Yeah.
might be.
Yeah, I would imagine. That's funny.
But this foot has done 0. So
So you walk in circles.
yeah. Got a ripped foot.
Well, Eric, we will have you back at Dorchfest this year. You're going to be at 33 Caruth Street, and I don't remember the time. Do you remember the time offhand?
2.
2? All right. Well, people should come out and see you. Definitely one of the most unique bands we'll have at Dorchester. So.
Thanks.
And a great sound as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this podcast. It's
Yeah,
great.
of course. All right. Can we hear you play some songs?
You sure?
All right. Great.
Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, my darling, Shady Grove, my little love, headed back to Harlan. Had a banjo made of gold, every string would shine. The only song it would play, wish that girl was mine. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I say. Shady Grove, my little love, I'm bound to blow away. Went up to see little Shady Grove standing in the door. Shoes and stockings in her hand and her bare feet on the floor. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I say. Shady Grove, my little love, I'm bound to blow away. I wish I had a big fine horse corn to feed him on. Shady Grove to stay at home and feed him when I'm gone. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I say. Shady Grove, my little love, I'm bound to blow away. Pretty Polly, won't you come along with me? Pretty Polly, won't you come along with me? Before we get married, some pleasures to see. He led her over mountains and valleys so deep. He led her over mountains and valleys so deep, till Polly mistrusted and began to weep. She said, Willie, oh Willie, I'm afraid of your ways. She said, Willie, oh Willie, I'm afraid of your ways. The way you've been rambling, gonna lead me astray. Now, Paulie, you're guessing about right. you're guessing about right. I dug your grave the best part of last night. He stabbed her in her heart, and her heart's blood did flow. He stabbed her in her heart, and her heart's blood did flow. And into the grave little Paulie did go. A debt to the devil, well, he must pay. A debt to the devil, well, he must pay for killing pretty Paulie and trying to get away. He shoveled down some dirt on her and turned to go home. He shoveled down some dirt on her and turned to go home, leaving no one to weep but the wild birds to moan. Pretty Paulie, won't you come along with me? Pretty Paulie, won't you come along with me? The way you've been rambling, gonna leave me. That's an old English folk song. Let's see. This is a song from Django Reinhardt. I don't think he wrote it, but I got it from a recording he did. Ew, blue drag sure is dragging me down. I'm almost touching the ground when I got that blue drag. Slow drag, got that new lazy swing. I crave that new hazy thing. I must have my blue drag. That rhythm has got me into this mysterious craze. That rhythm has got me into this peculiar daze. Slow drag has got my soul on fire. I know that I'll never tire of that old blue drag. Oh, blue drag sure is dragging me down. I'm almost touching the ground when I hear that blue drag. I opened my eyes this morning, was not home in bed. 4 angels standing round me, thought I must be dead. Opened my eyes this morning, I thought I must be dead. Four angels standing round me, and the room was painted red. Lord, have mercy on your good son. Take me up to heaven, not hell where I belong. Yes, take me up to heaven, not hell where I belong. Oh, the stars began to tremble, rain began to fall. 4 angels standing round me, it was no social call. I got down on my knees and prayed, Lord, but it did no good at all. Lord, have mercy on your good son. Take me up to heaven, not hell where I belong. me up to heaven, not hell where I belong. Yes, Lord, have mercy on your good son. Take me up to heaven, not hell where I belong.
Thank you for listening to DotLife, which is available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. DotLife is produced and edited by me, Erin Caldwell. Technical support is provided by Yasser Mahmood. Additional support is provided by the Dorchester Reporter and the Record Company. Thanks to Cat Armistead, Bobby Boyd, Bill Forry, and Eric Royer for joining this week's show. We'd love it if you could share, subscribe, rate, and review the pod wherever you listen. If you're interested in supporting the podcast, visit DotLifePod.com for more information.